Okay. Right. I am now going to hand over to Sharon Harding to actually give us a presentation on wills and trusts. You're going to have to bear with me because I'm going to have to switch screens at the moment. So let me stop sharing and let me get Sharon's up for you all to see. Okay. Can everybody see that? Nope. You're all on mute because you've all been really good. So I've got no fit. Hold on, set share screen. There we go. Now can you see that? Brilliant. I'm going to take silence as golden on this. So as I said at the beginning, I know I've let a few new members in. If you have any questions, please do put them in the chat, and Sharon will be happy to answer any questions at the end. This isn't one where we want you to talk about any personal things. You know, don't reveal anything, you know, that you wouldn't want to go on YouTube, because this will be posted on YouTube afterwards. But we will make a commitment that you can follow up with any of our presenters or ourselves afterwards. Okay. So on that note, I'd like to hand over to Sharon to introduce herself and talk through how she can help us and all the information that we need to know with regards to wills and trusts. Over to you.
Thank you. Hello, folks. I'm Sharon Harding from Peace of Mind Planning. I'm an estate planner, so I do wills, trusts, powers of attorney. I'm a member of the Society of Will Writers and a member of the Institute of Paralegals, so I'm safe to do business with. I truly believe that every single person in the UK should be able to make their own decisions, supported by their loved ones where they can. However, can I have the next slide, Jules? The legal position on this is very, very different. Once your child reaches 18, you will lose all your parental responsibility rights, and you cannot make decisions for your children. Commonly held beliefs are that people think they have next of kin rights to look after their loved ones. There is no such thing in the UK. Can I have the next slide, Jules? There are, however, things that you can do, and one of these is a lasting power of attorney. There are two. The first one is for property and finances, and the second one is for health and welfare. Property and financial affairs covers money, savings, tax, pensions, benefits, and you can actually use your child's benefits to pay anything that they need personally. This can be used from the minute it is registered, so your children don't have to lose mental capacity for them to hand over their decision making to you. Health and welfare is slightly different. This can only be used after your child has lost mental capacity. And at that point forward, you can make decisions on health and welfare for them. Can I have the next slide, Jules? Jules, can I have the next slide? Thanks, Danny. Both of these can be done if your child has the mental capacity to understand the meaning. Mental capacity is quite fluid and it can change day by day. To establish that somebody has mental capacity, we need to make sure that they understand the information they need, the consequences of the decisions they're making, and be able to remember enough of the detail to help them make the decision. They need to weigh up the options and make a personal choice to be able to communicate their decision to you. Next slide, please, Jules. If your child doesn't have mental capacity, everything's not lost. It's just not quite as straightforward. One of the things you can do is you can apply to the Court of Protection for a deputyship. This means that your child doesn't have the mental capacity to make the decisions to inform you to instruct an LPA, but you can apply for a deputyship. Two types are property and financial affairs is the common one that most people have. This means that you can look after bills and benefits and pensions and anything else. The court will advise you beforehand what you can and can't make decisions on. Health and welfare is granted in quite extreme circumstances for people when best interest isn't being looked after by the local authorities. They are very, very hard to get. Can I have the next one, please? So with a deputyship, it is quite expensive. Commonly, I worked with solicitors in the past. And I would go to them and say, one of my clients needs to get a deputyship. Can you give me an idea of how much that will be? Unfortunately, solicitors will go, well, how long's a piece of string? It depends very much on how long it takes us. I now work with a company who offers a fixed cost deputyship service. So for around about £1,200, you can get a deputyship for your children. That includes all that and all disbursements. That means that no matter what happens once your children turn 18, whether you've got a deputyship or a lasting power of attorney, you can make the decisions that your child would make for themselves. Lots of children now with special educational needs or disabilities are actually living a lot longer than they did before. So lots of parents are now having to look at decisions on how to provide for them if they die before them. In many cases, leaving a disabled child an inheritance isn't beneficial, and it may leave you wondering what will happen once you've gone. Leaving a vulnerable child a large lump sum of money could put them in a very vulnerable position. They may not be able to deal with their own finances, they may lose means tested benefits, or be financially abused by others. This leaves lots of my clients in a quandary and considering how to leave their estate. Do they leave it to their siblings? Do they leave it to their friends? Do they leave it to other relatives? With the promise that they will look after your child. This is an incredibly risky situation, as once you've inherited something in England and Wales, it's yours to do what you like with, and no court in the land can turn this fact over. In many cases, people are honest and reasonable and will look after your children. However, there are many unforeseen circumstances that can change this. Can I have the next page, Jules, please? For instance, if you look at the fact that you possibly have 2 children, you have a son and a daughter, and Eliza has special educational needs, but Tim doesn't. In your will, you leave your entire estate to Tim on the basis that he will care for Eliza for the rest of her life, and he's more than happy to do that because he loves his sister. After your death, Tim finds it hard to juggle all these things and runs into financial trouble, and his creditors go after the inheritance money to pay off his debts. There's a massive chunk of money that was left to provide for Eliza that will go missing. Later in life, Tom's marriage falls apart and he gets divorced, and the settlement takes half of his assets. So all of a sudden, the money that you left Tim to look after Eliza has gone. When he dies a few years later without having made a will, all of his assets are then left to his children. So it means that even with the best of intention and everything you wanted to do for Eliza, unfortunately, life changed this. Now, next slide, Jules. So what can you do? What are the best things that you can do? Leaving all your estate to somebody else isn't wise. You need to make provision. And by far the easiest and safest way to do this is to leave inheritance for your children that is ring fenced off. We can do a disabled person's trust, either in your will or during your lifetime if you want to pay money into it now. This means that the trusts are designed for circumstances where you wish to leave all or some of your estate to a beneficiary who is unable to manage the inheritance for themselves. You would appoint up to 4 people as your trustees. That can be your children, it can be your friends, it can be your siblings, it can be anybody that you trust. Upon death, the trustees then decide how and when to distribute the trust fund to the beneficiary. That means that you can leave instructions in a letter of wishes that says that you would like money to be used for holidays, additional care, a car, absolutely anything that you feel would be of value to your child. Have next slide, Jules. The advantages of doing it like this is that first and foremost, your child doesn't own the assets in the trust. They're governed for them by their trustees. Whilst the assets are in trust, it means that your child is able to benefit from them without losing any state means tested benefits. They don't have to manage the assets from themselves. They can't be influenced by other people to spend money that they can't get access to. And your trustees have the assets to purchase items on behalf of the child. It's by far and above the safest way to look after your children. And that really is it in a nutshell, unless anybody has any questions.
Okay, has anybody got, let's just check. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if that's all right, Sharon. Have you finished with that if I stop sharing it? Brilliant. Have we got any questions in there? Just let me check the chat. Nothing's coming up at the moment, Sharon. For me, I guess my question would be around, so I think the advice that I've been given in the past is that disabled person's trust is almost, it's described like a wicket keeper's gloves. It's there ready for when I die and when Andy dies, that we can, all of our money would then go into that trust, because I think the benefits is as low as £16,500, something like that. And I'm let Esther and all the rest of you on the call if I'm getting the wrong figures here. So if a disabled person is left anything over and above £16,500, then that is what they can actually use to finance their care. Is that how you understand it?
Me or Claire?
Yourself, sorry, Sharon.
Yeah. Anything you're left over £16,000 is the current threshold for means tested benefits. So whether that's disabled persons benefits, universal credit, it's not as much the losing of the money, it's losing the support that goes with it. Now, you don't have to leave all of your money to your child. You can leave a proportion. If you've got 4 children and only one has a disability and needs a trust, you can leave 25% of your estate to that child to be governed. So you don't have to think that you've got to leave everything and treat anybody unfairly. But it does protect them, very much so. Losing benefit.
And who would be eligible for a disabled person's trust?
It's basically anybody with a disability that means that they can't make decisions for themselves.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be cerebral palsy. It could be any of the mental health issues as well.
Okay. And there's a question about deputyship, the difference in the health and welfare and property. Can you go through that bit again for us?
Yeah, on a deputyship, the most common one that the Court of Protection will issue is for property and finance. That means that you can look after money, savings, investments, where the child lives, absolutely everything. The more difficult one to get is for health and welfare, because it has to be that the best interest of the adult child is not being catered to. And it's quite difficult to prove, very, very expensive. And I think it's something ridiculous, like 1 in 99 applications goes through. So it's not something, unless you've got a really strong case, I would recommend people go down the path of trying to apply for.
Okay. And what happens with the trust after the disabled person's death? What would need to happen? So yeah, that's a good point. If Andy and I are gone, I'll talk about me because I'm quite happy to share this. But if Andy and I are gone, and what would happen to the money that we've left Josh in his trust? How would you manage that next layer of inheritance, really?
Exactly like any will or other trust, there is always a fallback position. So
Okay.
once to Josh, that money would then be distributed as per your instructions or per the residual of your estate. So generally to Josh's siblings.
Okay.
Or their children. But it's never sort of left in limbo. It will always find a home somewhere.
Okay, thank you. And another question is, could you explain the difference between a disabled person's trust and a discretionary trust?
A disabled person's trust is a discretionary trust. It's just because it's for a disabled person, the tax advantages are better.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, learned something new there. That's brilliant. Any more questions? Okay. Well, guys, we will be circulating, as long as you're happy for us, Sharon, to circulate your details afterwards. So if anybody has any questions, that they can follow up with you. Is that okay?
Absolutely lovely, thank you.
And thank you very much indeed for joining us on this, what is now a very dark Wednesday evening. We really appreciate you taking the time. You are more than welcome to stay on. We have it's okay. We have got the wonderful guys from the Carers Trust. Oh, hold on a sec. I'm just being told there's one more question. Hold on, just let me see. I can't see it. Vanessa, would you mind reading it out for me? It's not popping up on mine.
Hi, yeah, it's do you have to wait until your child reaches 18?
Yes, because up until they're 18, you've got parental responsibility. You can legally make decisions for them. It's just literally on the stroke of midnight of their 18th birthday that you lose those rights.
Okay, brilliant. Any more before I move on? All right, gang, thank you very much indeed. Let me share my screen.